Thank you very much, Kath. Evening, everyone. My name's George Bannister, and I'm here to talk to you about confidence. So I'm the owner of a property development company called BlackOak. We work mainly with period properties, and we specialise in renovations, extensions, and everything in between. Earlier this year, we won the Daily Telegraph Best Renovation of the Year award in the UK. Now, that's all very impressive, but you're probably sat there right now thinking, why on earth have they sent a glorified builder to speak to us about confidence? Well, over the next 25 minutes or so, that will become clear. So the first area I want to focus on is natural confidence. Now, when I think of natural confidence, I think of someone like Richard Branson. Would everyone agree that he's a fairly natural confident guy? Yeah, a few vague nods there. Okay, so can you guys name for me a couple of people who you think are naturally confident? So think of high-profile celebrities, think of movie stars, think of sports stars. We have two people, come on. Dua Lipa, yeah. Anyone else? Usain Bolt, brilliant. Okay, so these people who are naturally confident have got on pretty well, haven't they? Now, they've actually done some scientific research into natural confidence. They have ascertained that less than 0.001% of people are born with natural confidence. That's less than 1 in 1,000 people. Now, I was extremely fortunate in the lottery that is life, and I was born with natural confidence. So the reason I'm here tonight is to share with you guys some of the strategies that I just do automatically and naturally so that you can implement in your lives going forward. So I want to take you back to 2011. My cousin Will and I started a company called Blackdown Shepherd Huts. Anyone here ever heard of a shepherd hut? No? Got half a nod there. So a shepherd hut essentially is a small building, quite often wood, you have in your garden. It's on wheels. They're very popular as home offices, as extra accommodation. Recent years, they've become phenomenally popular as holiday lets. Now, when we entered the market, there was already a lot of very well-established companies out there. These companies have been going for years. They sold hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of product every year. They had big marketing budgets. They had fantastic photography. Whereas Will and I, we were just two builders. We were the people who turn up to your house and create a load of noise and dust and hopefully leave things looking pretty. But we entered and we had the confidence that we could create a better quality product, that we can compete with these bigger companies, even though we only had £2,000 to our name to start with. So fast forward to December 2015, which is when I sold out the company. Less than 5 years later, we were turning over £1 million per year, and we were in zero debt. So hopefully you can see where I'm going with this confidence thing, yeah? So one of my favourite life analogies is surfing. This photo was taken just off the island of Lombok, Indonesia, one of my favourite places in the world. Not a massive day, it's about head high there. When you get a big day, it's kind of halfway up that screen. Nobody wants to be sat on the boat taking photos, so everyone's out in it. Anyone here ever tried surfing before? Yeah? Okay, quite a few of you. Hard than it looks, isn't it? Yeah? To do anything that looks vaguely impressive in surfing is extremely hard work. Because when you're on the wave, you've got to be in exactly the right position. And you've got to be in exactly the right position at the right time. Because if you're not, that wave will pick you up, it will smash you down through the surface of the water, it will bounce you off the reef, it will pick you up, it will let you think you're going to get the oxygen, and then it will smash you down again, and then it will bounce you off, and it will keep doing that. And that's called a washing machine effect. Eventually, hopefully, at some stage, it will spit you out at the other end. And that's a lot like life, really, isn't it? Because has anyone here ever felt that life's kind of chewed them up and spat them out a bit? Anyone ever felt like that? Yeah, a few nods. See, when you get chucked out at the other end, you've got two options. You can either quit and go home, or you can paddle back out. And if you paddle back out, that means you've got to go through that adversity that's just chewed you up. But by doing that, you can get back out into the lineup and you can have another go. Because without doing that, you won't get to get the good bits, which is riding the wave. Exactly the same in life. So I've done a few boxing matches in my time. I use the analogy of boxing, but it translates across any sport really, be it hockey, netball, eventing, whatever it is. In the level of boxing that I was at, you're in the ring for 8 minutes. 3 2-minute rounds, 2 1-minute breaks. That's it, 8 minutes. It's not a vast amount of time, but it's not really the 8 minutes that counts. It's the hours, the days, the weeks, the months preparing. It's turning up for training on time. It's sticking to your routine. It's being disciplined. It's following your diet plans. It's listening to your trainers. Because without all that work beforehand, that 8 minutes is worthless. Okay, so skydiving, also known as jumping out of aeroplanes. Anyone here ever done a skydive? Yeah, we've got one. If you haven't, I'd recommend it. Okay, so if you want to jump out of an aeroplane, you need to go to what's known as a drop zone. Essentially, it's a piddly little airfield somewhere. Now on a drop zone, they organise it by each plane that takes off with people in it will be called a load. So for example, if you're on the 15th plane to take off that day, you'll be on load number 15. What will happen? There'll be a tannoy system there, and you'll hear load 15, 20-minute call. Now what that means is in 20 minutes time, that plane is going to be taking off and you need to be on it. By that time, you probably want to have spoken to all the people you're jumping with, because there's quite a lot of stuff that's got to be decided. You've got to decide who's going inside the door, who's going outside the door, what formation you're doing, what transitions you're doing, what altitude you're breaking off at. Quite important stuff. You might also, if you haven't already, want to think about packing your parachute. Next thing you'll hear, load 15, 10-minute call. Yep, you've guessed it, in 10 minutes time, that plane's taking off, you need to be on it. If by that time you have not already taken a nervous wee, because most people need one, it's much better to do it while you're on the ground than while you're in the air. And if you haven't already, you probably want to think about packing your parachute because, let's face it, your life does depend on it a bit. Next thing you'll hear, load 15, 5-minute call. Yep, you know the drill, 5 minutes time, that plane's taking off, you need to be on it. By this stage, you really need to have done all the above, spoken to everyone, had a nervous wee if you need one. And if you haven't already, you might want to think about packing your parachute, because a parachute is pretty big and it's got to go into a tiny little bag. Now, I've been in that situation before a number of times. I've been there on a 5-minute call with a parachute laid out in front of me. It was my confidence in my ability to pack. It was my confidence in my ability to pack at speed. But most importantly of all, is my confidence to stay calm under pressure that helped see me through. So, I've been told that you lot are quite bright. Would you agree? Come on now, be confident. Yeah, I have one year there. I've been told that you lot are very, very good at paying attention. Would you agree? Yes. There you go. See, I told you they're confident, Kev. That's good. Because I've designed a little test for you to see who's been paying attention and who hasn't. I just made one of these things up. Which one was it? Tell you what, I'll make it easy for you. Raise your hand if you think I made the surfing up. 1, 1.5, 2.5, 2.5, I'm not sure. Okay, raise your hand if you think I made the boxing up. I'm getting quite assertive now. That's at least 6, 7, 8. Okay, raise your hand if you think I made the skydiving up. Okay, so that looks like most of you think I made the boxing up. I'm afraid to say you're all wrong. The thing I made up was a natural confidence bit, absolute load of nonsense. You see, confidence is a learned behaviour, and that means that it can be learned by anyone at any time. Do you think the person in that photo looked particularly confident? Because I'll tell you what, they're not. That was me at the age of 22 years old. 14th of January, 2005. I'd just been remanded into Exeter prison for attempted armed robbery on a post office. In the lead up to this photo, there was 2 failed suicide attempts. There was another one that night. Now, the reason I got to that place was because I was a heroin and crack addict. And I was bang at it, probably £200 worth of gear every day. So I can tell you, confidence doesn't lead you to a place like that. What leads you to a place like that is low self-worth, low self-esteem, self-hatred, disconnection from your family, disconnection from your friends, disconnection from your work, disconnection from society, and the worst one of all, disconnection from yourself. So whilst in prison, I discovered that, funnily enough, I had quite a bit of time on my hands. And one day, a guy came up to me and he said, I suggest you read this book. And I wasn't really much of a reader at this time. So I said, yeah, go for it. This book was called The Elephant and the Twig by a guy called Jeff Thompson. Now, the basic concept of this book is if you get a little baby elephant, like cute little baby elephant with little elephant ears and little elephant nose. That was my elephant impression, by the way. So you get this cute little baby elephant and you tie it up to a twig. Now that elephant will try and run away, and it's going to try and run away, and it will keep failing, and it'll keep failing, it'll keep failing, eventually it'll give up. But that elephant gets bigger and it grows up. And when it grows up, it gets to about 2 tons in weight. Now that's a lot of elephant. So what do you think would happen if you got that 2-ton elephant and you tied it to the twig? What's going to happen to the twig? It's going to break, isn't it? That's what you'd think, but that's not what happens. You see, that elephant has experienced what's known as learned helplessness. It's given up. It doesn't bother trying anymore. Now I see this day in, day out. I see it when people say to me, there's no point leaving my abusive relationship because who else would want me? When people say to me, there's no point me asking for a pay rise because I'm not worth it. When people say to me, there's no point me trying to start my own company because people like me don't run companies. Now, fortunately, there is a counter to this. There is learned optimism. There is learned confidence. And I have been practicing these principles for over 10 years now. So there's another part in this book where Jeff says, start paying attention to how people respond when you ask, how are you today? Because at least 9 out of 10 people will say, not bad. Now, what's happening here is your subconscious mind doesn't understand nots, won'ts, can'ts, don'ts. So all your conscious mind hears is the doing word or the feeling. So when someone says, how are you? And you say not bad, all your conscious mind registers is bad. So Jeff sets a task in this, and he says, I want you to kind of overdo it a bit and be really positive. So I'll set the scene. I was living at the time in Dartmoor prison, serving a 3.5-year sentence. Now, as prisons go, Dartmoor's pretty rough and it's fairly violent, but I thought I'll give this a go. So someone will say, how are you today? I go, you know what, I'm absolutely amazing and I am loving life. And they give me like a really weird, strange look, and they'd be like, what the hell are you on about? I said, well, let's look at this, shall we? I got a roof over my head. I get 3 mediocre meals a day. On Wednesdays, I leave my laundry outside my door. Little man runs along, picks it up, brings it back on a Thursday. I've got access to one of the best gyms in the Southwest. I mean, Nuffield Health has not got anything on that place. And what I found was that actually I became really happy. Just from the words I was using, just from changing my language. So after I left prison, I decided to put down the hard drugs, stop doing heroin and crack and injecting anything, because that stuff's bad for you, right? Yeah. But I carried on drinking alcohol, taking a bit of ecstasy and doing a bit of cocaine, because in my world, everyone does that, right? Yeah. But what I found 4 years later, by 2010, emotionally, I was in exactly the same place. I was empty inside. You can imagine it's like you've got a donut inside you, and it doesn't matter what you try and put into that hole, whether it be alcohol, drugs, shopping, sex, work. If you've got that empty hole inside you, nothing will fill it. And I decided enough was enough. So I went into rehab. I did a 28-day program. Now, on the last day in rehab, one of the counsellors came up to me and he said, I'd highly recommend you do some CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy. So off I went and signed up for some CBT. Now, the format I did it in was a kind of psychotherapy. Psychotherapy doesn't work brilliantly with me. With some people, it works fantastic. But there was one thing that absolutely changed my life. So I'm sat there in front of this woman, and she asked me a question. And I said, well, yeah, but, you know, I can't do that because I'm not very confident. And she said, whoa, stop. Right there. She said, I want you to change one thing about what you've just said. She said, rather than saying, I am not very confident, I want you to change that to, I used to not be very confident. And I thought, what difference is that going to make, really? I said, you know what? I've got nothing to lose here. It's not going to cost me anything. So I did it. I didn't do it perfectly straight away, but I persisted and I persevered. Now, what happens with this? By me saying, I used to not be very confident, the person I'm talking to assumes that I am now confident. I'm not saying that I'm confident, I just say that I used to not be. Because they assume that I am confident, they start to treat me like I'm confident. And when someone starts to treat you like you're confident, you start to act like you're confident. And once you start to act like you're confident, yes, you've guessed it, you've become confident. To the extent, people now walk up to me and they say, Well, yeah, it's right for you because you're really confident. My name's George Bannister. Thank you very much. Over to Kath.